Lock and load, Space Marines. This is the ultimate bug hunt. For over 4 decades, the Alien and AVP franchises have crawled, slithered, and pounced their way across every gaming platform imaginable. Whether you're dodging facehuggers on the Atari 2600 or creeping through the shadows in next-gen VR, these games have delivered jump scares, pulse rifles, and more acid blood than your laundry can handle. Ready to track every Xenomorph encounter and Predator showdown ever coded, we're about to relive every acid-dripping, pulse-pounding moment in Alien gaming history. Alien, 1982. Fellow connoisseurs of ancient pixels and questionable design choices, let's set the time machine to 1982. Back when mullets were peak fashion and the Atari 2600 was the undisputed monarch of living room entertainment, mostly because there wasn't much competition. And what were the cool kids terrified of? Ridley Scott's Alien, of course. So naturally, some brilliant minds decided, hey, let's take this psychological horror masterpiece about a terrifying creature that bursts out of chests and make it a dot-gobbling maze game. Because, you know, perfect translation. The plot is about as thin as my patience trying to thread a needle. You're trapped on the Nostromo, or what looks suspiciously like a few disjointed rectangles, and a blobby representation of the Xenomorph is out to give you a very bad day. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, and really, what else were you going to do, is to collect all the alien eggs. These look suspiciously like tiny, menacing hot dogs, but let's just pretend they're eggs, okay? The pressure is on, because if you don't collect them all, you're not just getting a game over, you're becoming alien lunch. Gameplay-wise, if you're expecting anything resembling modern stealth or combat, bless your innocent heart. This is pure, unadulterated, old-school arcade panic. You scurry through screen after screen, each a minimalist nightmare of corridors, while your blocky, monochrome tormentor chases you down like a particularly aggressive dust bunny. Your only defense is a flamethrower, which, much like the one in the movie, seems more effective at making dramatic noise than actually stopping the alien. It just sort of politely asks it to leave for a few seconds. What makes this game a hilariously memorable relic? It's the sheer chutzpah of it, taking a groundbreaking horror film and distilling it into a game where a big blob chases a smaller blob for hot dogs. It's a testament to the power of imagination and a very forgiving audience that this game even existed. It's less scary and more, oh bless its heart, it tried. Alien, 1984. Folks, clear the decks, because we're about to delve into a piece of gaming history that proves you don't need photorealistic graphics to induce a full-blown panic attack. Long before Ripley was suplexing xenomorphs in CGI, and way before Game Over Man became a meme, there was Alien on the venerable 8-bit machines. Released in 1984 for the Commodore 64 and ZX Spectrum, with the Amstrad CPC getting its turn in '85, this wasn't just a movie tie-in, it was a masterclass in turning pixelated dread into pure, unadulterated stress. Forget your typical arcade shoot-'em-up. This was a strategic horror management sim hiding in plain sight. Imagine Clue, but instead of Colonel Mustard in the conservatory with the wrench, it's a terrifying, acid-blooded alien, and your crewmates are dropping faster than a lead balloon in a vacuum. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, and let's be honest, you're pretty much stuck, is to hunt down the ultimate unwelcome guest while simultaneously trying to prevent your remaining crew from succumbing to mass hysteria, painful impregnation, or just generally becoming alien snacks. Gameplay-wise, Alien was less about nimble fingers and more about cold, calculating terror. You'd navigate a top-down map of the Nostromo, desperately trying to pinpoint the Xenomorph's current whereabouts while juggling the rapidly plummeting morale and meagre equipment of your dwindling crew. It was a brutal balancing act. Do you send poor Dallas into that suspiciously quiet vent? Should you arm Lambert with the flamethrower, even though she looks like she's about 2 pixels away from a complete meltdown? The game even let you sacrifice crew members as bait, a truly grim mechanic that likely scarred a generation of young gamers. Despite the chunky graphics and limited sound, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The sparse visuals actually heightened the sense of isolation, making every on-screen blip a potential heart attack. For its time, this was a shockingly unique and effective adaptation of a beloved sci-fi horror, proving that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones you can barely see. Aliens, the computer game, 1986. Before you could shout, "Game over, man," into your crusty walkie-talkie, Aliens, the computer game, oozed its way onto the Commodore 64 in 1986 like a facehugger looking for a new buddy. Inspired by James Cameron's space horror action masterpiece Aliens, this game took the pulse-pounding tension of the film and squeezed it into your beige plastic keyboard machine. And you know what? It kind of worked. Kind of. Set on the unlucky colony of LV-426, the game throws you into the boots of the doomed but determined Colonial Marines. Your mission? Rescue the colonists, survive the Xenomorphs, and maybe live to tell the tale. Of course, survive is relative when your backup is a joystick that moves like molasses in zero gravity. Instead of sticking to one gameplay style, the C64 version is a grab bag of chaos. 7 distinct segments stitched together with sheer willpower and a hint of space madness. You'll dive from first-person alien blasting to strategic team tracking, then onto pulse-pounding vent crawls. Each level had its own controls and learning curve, which was both impressive and deeply frustrating, like assembling IKEA furniture blindfolded. It tried to bring cinematic tension to an 8-bit machine with no business being that dramatic. Sure, the visuals looked like they were drawn by an alien with a crayon, but the vibe? Pure Aliens. You felt the pressure. You panicked. You probably died. But man, what a way to go. Aliens, the computer game, EU version. 1986. If you grew up in the 80s, chances are you either wanted to be Ripley or, at the very least, not be the guy who gets face-hugged in the first 5 minutes. Enter Aliens, the computer game, the European version mind you, released in 1986 for the Amstrad CPC, Commodore 64, ZX Spectrum, and later ported to the MSX and Commodore 16. Developed by Software Studios and published by Electric Dreams Software, this game is a pixelated love letter to James Cameron's iconic sci-fi horror flick, but with all the chunky graphics and nerve-wracking beeps a retro gamer could dream of. But let's get into the real meat of it. This isn't just some lazy movie cash-in. The EU version takes the survive or die screaming vibe of the film and turns it into a tense, squad-based rescue operation. You're not just Ripley, you're the whole squad, each member with their own stats and, let's be honest, questionable survival odds. The game drops you into the labyrinthine colony complex, and from there, it's a race against time to save your crew from becoming Xenomorph chow. There's no hand-holding, just a map, some cryptic radio chatter, and your wits. Gameplay is a mix of nerve-wracking exploration and resource management. You'll be switching between Marines, each with a unique perspective, trying to keep everyone alive as the Xenomorph threat ramps up. Ammo is precious, the aliens are relentless, and the tension is dialed up to 11, especially when you hear that infamous motion tracker beep. The graphics might look blocky today, but back then, those flickering shadows and sudden alien encounters could make your heart skip a beat. The sound effects are pure nightmare fuel, and the sense of dread is almost tangible. Sure, it's not as flashy as later Alien games, but for fans of the franchise and retro gaming masochists, it's a cult classic that still delivers a punch of pixelated terror. Aliens, Alien 2, 1987, a retro gaming rabbit hole. You won't regret falling in to forget the glossy remasters and billion-dollar blockbusters for a moment, fellow gamers. Let's journey back to a time of glorious 8-bit limitations and discover a hidden gem so exclusive, so delightfully off the radar, that it's practically a whispered legend in the halls of retro gaming. Aliens, Alien 2 for the MSX. A 1987 release that remained firmly planted in Japanese territory. Yes, you read that right, Alien 2. Not a typo, not a misprint, just a wonderfully confusing title that perfectly sets the stage for the unique experience within. While the rest of the world was pumping quarters into arcade cabinets or grappling with other interpretations of James Cameron's masterpiece, MSX owners in Japan were treated to a bespoke side-scrolling action-adventure that dared to be different. Think of it as the gaming equivalent of finding a secret, awesome B-side on your favourite vinyl. Familiar themes, but with its own distinct, slightly eccentric vibe. This wasn't just a lazy cash-in, it was a pixelated passion project that delivered a surprisingly intense and memorable take on the Aliens universe. So, grab your digital spelunking gear, because we're about to unearth a retro treasure that proves sometimes the best gaming secrets are the ones you have to travel across the digital globe to find. Gameplay in Aliens. Alien 2 was a pure shot of classic 8-bit adrenaline. As a pixelated heroine who bears a striking resemblance to a certain Ellen Ripley, you're thrown headfirst into the xenomorph-infested hellscape of LV-426. Your mission? Survive. And to do that, you'll be running, jumping, and unleashing a satisfyingly chunky stream of pixelated projectiles into the relentless hordes of alien nasties. These weren't your polite, stand in line to be shot xenomorphs. They scuttled, they leaped, they clung to ceilings, and they generally made your virtual life a living nightmare. Armed with your trusty pulse rifle and a variety of power-ups that could turn you into a temporary pixel-shredding machine, you'd navigate surprisingly intricate levels, hunting for keycards, flipping switches, and generally trying not to become alien fodder. What truly set this game apart was its relentless pace and unforgiving difficulty. The aliens just kept coming, often swarming you from all sides, demanding quick reflexes and strategic use of your limited resources. It wasn't always pretty, but it was always exhilarating. For those lucky enough to have experienced it, Aliens, Alien 2 on the MSX remains a testament to the ingenuity and often overlooked brilliance of regional game development. It's a reminder that some of the most interesting chapters in gaming history are hidden just off the beaten path, waiting to be rediscovered. Aliens, 1990. Prepare for a transmission from a bygone era of coin-operated glory, a time when pixel art wasn't just a style, but a necessity, and arcade cabinets loomed like monoliths of pure, unadulterated excitement. Today, we're powering up Konami's Aliens 1990, not just a game, but a pivotal moment in the lineage of movie-to-game adaptations. This was the definitive interactive rendition of James Cameron's sci-fi action epic, a relentless, quarter-devouring leviathan that flawlessly captured the film's unyielding pace and suffocating terror. Launched in the neon-drenched halls of 1990, this towering machine beckoned players to step into the boots of either Ripley or Hicks, plunging them into the grim reality of LV-426. Your objective was stark: systematically obliterate an endless tide of xenomorphs, extricate the imperiled Newt from the clutches of biological horror, and ultimately confront and dispatch the monstrous alien queen herself. This wasn't about subtle dread. It was a furious, visceral ballet of pure firepower and desperate survival, a perfect digital echo of Cameron's iconic bug hunt. Gameplay in Aliens, 1990, was a masterclass in dynamic arcade design. Primarily a side-scrolling run-and-gun, it propelled players through meticulously crafted environments, from the abandoned, claustrophobic corridors of Hadley's Hope to the pulsating, grotesque heart of the alien hive. Your standard-issue pulse rifle provided a comforting, continuous stream of fire, but the true exhilaration came from securing devastating power-ups. The wide-arc flamethrower, capable of incinerating entire swarms. The iconic smart gun, with its uncanny, almost preternatural auto-targeting, and the raw, explosive might of rockets for clearing particularly entrenched alien formations. What truly set this title apart was its seamless, almost cinematic shifts in perspective. One moment, you're navigating a tight corridor in classic side view. The next, the camera pulls back for an intense top-down sequence as aliens pour from every conceivable aperture, mirroring the film's escalating chaos. The boss encounters were legendary, culminating in a climactic, multi-stage confrontation with the alien queen that was both incredibly challenging and immensely satisfying. Konami's dedication to authenticity extended to its audio, featuring digitized screams, impactful weapon effects, and instantly recognizable voice clips that cemented the experience. It was a perfectly balanced arcade machine, delivering an intoxicating blend of challenge and catharsis, solidifying its legacy as a landmark title in licensed gaming, and for many, the ultimate interactive Aliens experience. Alien 3, 1992 to 1994. Strap in, because if there's one thing the early 90s loved more than grunge music and questionable fashion choices, it was taking a single movie and cranking out a dozen different video games for every conceivable platform. So, when Alien 3 shambled into cinemas in 1992, a whole ecosystem of Alien 3 games burst forth, each a unique, pixelated interpretation of David Fincher's notoriously bleak film. We're talking a literal Xenomorph family reunion across the Amiga, Commodore 64, ZX Spectrum, NES, SNES, Genesis, Master System, and even the plucky little Game Boy. This wasn't a one-size-fits-all port. Oh no. Each developer was given the grim, hopeless premise of Ripley crash landing on a maximum security prison filled with bald convicts and a rogue xenomorph, and told to make it fun. The core concept, however, remained chillingly consistent. Ripley on Fiorina Fury 161, a desolate rock where a single, incredibly persistent xenomorph has decided to crash the party. Your unenviable mission? Survive this desolate nightmare, attempt to rescue the inmates, who are probably more dangerous than the alien, let's be honest, and somehow find a way to dispatch the creature without incinerating yourself and everyone else. It's less a bug hunt and more a desperate scramble for survival against all odds, with a ticking clock made of acid blood. The beauty, and occasional madness, of the Alien 3 game collection lay in its incredible gameplay diversity, a direct consequence of the era's wildly different hardware. The SNES and Genesis iterations, for example, truly shone as tight, action-packed run-and-gun platformers. These versions propelled you through sprawling, meticulously detailed levels, armed with your trusty pulse rifle, a searing flamethrower, and explosive grenades, all while racing against the clock to seal off vents or evacuate prisoners. They were celebrated for their fluid controls and impressive visuals, delivering a genuinely thrilling experience despite the movie's famously downbeat tone. Meanwhile, the NES opted for a more deliberate, exploration-heavy platforming approach, requiring careful navigation. For the 8-bit stalwarts like the Amiga and Commodore 64, you often found more methodical adventure-style gameplay, sometimes even weaving in light puzzle solving, or slower, more tactical combat. Even the little Game Boy managed to squeeze out a surprisingly effective, tension-filled side-scroller from its monochrome confines. While none perfectly captured the film's existential dread, because, frankly, how could they? Many delivered genuinely challenging and enjoyable gameplay, with the SNES and Genesis versions in particular holding up remarkably well as solid action titles even today. It's a prime example of a licensed property spreading its tendrils across an entire generation of gaming hardware, resulting in a fascinating, if occasionally perplexing, legacy. Aliens, a comic book adventure, 1995. Let's face it, 1995 was a weird time. The internet was still in its awkward teenage phase. Tamagotchis were all the rage, and someone, somewhere, thought it was a brilliant idea to combine the terrifying world of aliens with the gentle art of point-and-click adventuring. By Cryo Interactive and unleashed upon unsuspecting gamers by Mindscape, this title dared to ask, what if we took the Dark Horse Aliens comics, threw them in a blender with Monkey Island, and served it all up on a 486? You play as Lieutenant Colonel Henry Herrickson, a colonial marine turned terraforming supervisor who's basically the space-age equivalent of a middle manager with a pulse rifle. When a distress call leads him to Outpost B-54C, he quickly discovers that his job description didn't quite cover dealing with rogue scientists, shady experiments, and hordes of acid-spewing extraterrestrials. Oh, and there's a space jockey cameo, because subtlety is for cowards. The gameplay is where things get truly special. Imagine classic point-and-click exploration, mixed with a Sims-style crew management simulator, all seasoned with a dash of isometric combat that feels like it was coded by a committee of caffeinated hamsters. 1 minute, you're solving inventory puzzles that would make MacGyver weep. The next, you're rationing vending machine snacks to keep your crew from staging a morale-based mutiny. It's like running a daycare centre on LV-426. Aliens. A comic book adventure isn't perfect. The voice acting is a bit wooden, the puzzles are occasionally maddening, and the combat sequences make you question your life choices. But it's a bold, quirky, and strangely captivating experiment that's earned a cult following over the years. If you're willing to embrace the jank and dive headfirst into a world where xenomorphs are just another workplace hazard, this game might just surprise you. Just remember to pack extra snacks and try not to let the acid drool ruin your keyboard. Alien Trilogy, 1996. If you were a gamer in the mid-90s and even remotely into sci-fi horror, chances are you crossed paths with Alien Trilogy. This wasn't just another movie tie-in, it was a bold attempt to weaponize the slow-burn terror of the Alien franchise and fuse it with the kinetic chaos of a first-person shooter. Released in 1996 for PlayStation, Sega Saturn, and PC, Alien Trilogy took the DNA of Ridley Scott's cinematic universe and reshaped it into something grimy, aggressive, and surprisingly playable. You step into the steel-toed boots of Ellen Ripley. No nonsense, no cutscenes, just a big gun and a mission. Clean out the alien infestation before it spreads. The plot is more of a patchwork than a straight adaptation, pulling elements from the first 3 films and remixing them into a haunted industrial playground. Weyland-Yutani's shadow looms large, but it's the xenomorphs in the vents you need to worry about. Gameplay is pure 90s FPS, tight hallways, flickering lights, ammo stashed behind secret doors, and enemies that move just fast enough to keep your pulse up. The PlayStation version struck a nerve. It was gritty, atmospheric, and just unsettling enough to make you turn the volume down at night. Saturn's port had a few technical hiccups but retained the tension, while the PC edition gave you smoother controls and the sharpest visuals of the bunch. Even now, Alien Trilogy stands as one of the better examples of how to translate a cinematic universe into something interactive. It doesn't just borrow the world, it lets you live and survive in it. Aliens Online, 1998. 1998 was the year dial-up ruled, and Aliens Online burst onto the PC scene like a xenomorph at an unsuspecting birthday party. This wasn't just another shooter, it was a sweaty-palmed, heart-pounding dive into the Aliens universe, exclusively for GameStorm subscribers. Players picked sides: Colonial Marines, nervously clutching pulse rifles and motion trackers, or aliens slinking through vents and waiting to pounce. The plot? Simple: survive, dominate, and try not to scream when something leaps from the shadows. Gameplay was pure asymmetric chaos. Marines relied on teamwork, medics, and heavy weapons, while aliens used speed, stealth, and a healthy love of jump scares. Maps were tight, dark, and dripping with atmosphere, perfect for last-second ambushes and desperate firefights. Leveling up unlocked new abilities, and the lucky few could play as the terrifying Queen, turning the tables on even the bravest squads. Sure, the graphics were chunky and lag was a constant threat, but Aliens Online nailed the tension and panic of the movies. Every match felt like a scene straight from sci-fi horror, complete with frantic shouts and last-ditch stands. When the servers went dark in 2000, it left behind a cult following and a legacy of unforgettable bug hunts. Game over, man. Not for those who remember the chaos. Alien Resurrection, 2000. Ready to dive headfirst into a pixelated nightmare where the only thing more unforgiving than the aliens is your own trigger finger? Alien Resurrection for PlayStation, released in 2000, is that wild ride down the dark, claustrophobic halls of the USM Auriga, where every shadow hides a xenomorph ready to turn your day into a gooey mess. This isn't your average movie tie-in cash grab, it's a survival horror FPS that demands nerves of steel and thumbs of iron, wrapped in the eerie sci-fi vibes of the Alien franchise. You play as Ripley's clone, because, of course, cloning Ripley is a great idea, navigating a ship overrun by the nastiest creatures in the galaxy. The game lets you switch between Ripley and her ragtag crew, each packing their own weapons and quirks, making every firefight a frantic scramble for survival. What sets Alien Resurrection apart is its tense atmosphere, flickering lights, echoing footsteps, and that iconic alien hiss that'll have you checking behind the couch. The gameplay is a mix of old-school FPS challenge and survival horror suspense, with controls that were pretty cutting-edge for the PlayStation's time. Dual analog sticks for aiming and movement, which sometimes felt like trying to pilot a spaceship while juggling grenades. Sure, the graphics show their age with blocky models and grainy textures, but the sound design and level layouts more than make up for it, crafting an experience that's equal parts terrifying and addictive. Alien Resurrection might not have been perfect, but it's a cult classic that still holds a special place in the hearts of fans who love their scares, served with a side of retro grit. Aliens, Thanatos Encounter, 2001. Of all the places the Alien franchise could have landed, who would have guessed a Game Boy Color cartridge in 2001? Yet here we are, with Aliens, Thanatos Encounter, a game that took one of sci-fi horror's most iconic universes and crammed it into a pocket-sized screen with surprising ambition. Released in the GBC's twilight years, this one flew under almost everyone's radar. And that's a shame, because for what it is, Thanatos Encounter is kind of a weird little gem. The story drops you into the boots of a Colonial Marine team answering a distress call from the USCSS Thanatos. Predictably, it's a one-way ticket to alien trouble. The ship is crawling with xenomorphs, the crew's missing, and it's your job to fix it, or die trying. Instead of the usual first-person or side-scrolling chaos, the game opts for a top-down perspective, turning the horror into something more strategic and slow-burning. Gameplay on the Game Boy Color is, of course, limited. Movement is a bit clunky, aiming can feel like guesswork, and you'll probably spend a lot of time trying to line up shots without eating tail. But despite those limitations, it pulls off a certain eerie tension. Pixel art is better than you'd expect, and the chiptune soundtrack does a decent job evoking that lonely, echoing in the dark vibe. It's not perfect, but it's bold for what it tries to do. Thanatos Encounter is the kind of oddball spin-off that reminds you how far franchises were willing to stretch back then, and honestly, that's part of its charm. Aliens, Unleashed, 2003. Let's rewind to the glorious days of early 2000s mobile gaming, when your phone doubled as a brick and triple as a gaming console. Aliens, Unleashed, released in 2003 for Java-enabled mobile phones, think Nokias and Motorola's that could survive a small meteor, tried to cram the terror of the Alien franchise into a screen smaller than a graham cracker. The setup? Classic space horror chaos. You're a lone marine responding to a distress call on a colony where things have gone very sideways. Spoiler, everyone's either dead or something worse, and the xenomorphs are everywhere. It leans more toward Alien than Aliens. Claustrophobic, shadowy, and heavy on the dread, even if those shadows are just 6 black pixels. Gameplay was side-scrolling shoot-'em-up action, controlled via the number pad, RIP 2468. You'd run through corridors, blast aliens, collect better weapons, and try not to rage quit when your thumb missed the fire button during a swarm. Boss fights existed, ammo was limited, and the tension? Weirdly real for something so tiny. It really brought that scary vibe on a phone. Sure, it was clunky. Sure, it lagged when more than 2 sprites appeared on screen. But at the time, it felt like the future of gaming lived in your pocket, right next to your Snake high score. Aliens, Extermination, 2006. Ever dream of blasting xenomorphs without leaving Earth or risking a chest-bursting surprise? Aliens, Extermination, JAD, 2006, is your arcade ticket to do just that. Picture James Cameron's Aliens mashed up with your local arcade, because nothing screams family fun like shooting alien bugs with a plastic rifle. The story? The Colonial Marines return to LV-426's Hadley's Hope to finish what they started, ignoring Alien 3 like it never happened. Apparently, nuking from orbit wasn't enough. Classic Wayland-Yutani. Gameplay is pure arcade joy. Grab a buddy, or that token hoarder, and pick up the chunky M41A pulse rifle replica. You'll blast through 4 missions, plus a fiery bonus, filled with facehuggers, chest bursters, and a boss alien that looks like it crashed the party from another game. It's not just aliens. Rogue androids and turrets add chaos. and friendly Marines love to jump in your line of fire. Friendly fire, more like friendly frustration. Controls couldn't be simpler. Pull the trigger for bullets, hit red for grenades, and yellow for flamethrowers. The graphics aren't mind-blowing, but they nail that gritty sci-fi vibe of LV-426. It's fast, frantic, and perfect for quick bursts of alien-slaying fun. It's the ultimate, just one more quarter game, a love letter to aliens and proof that sometimes the best solution is overwhelming firepower and maybe a little chaos. Just aim carefully and watch out for those friendly Marines. Aliens, Infestation, 2011. Gather around, fellow space truckers and bug stompers, because we're about to delve into a truly unsung hero of the Alien franchise, one that surprisingly found its perfect little dark corner on the Nintendo DS. Yeah, you heard right, the dual-screen wonder that also gave us Nintendogs and Brain Age somehow birthed one of the most atmospheric and genuinely tense Alien games ever. Released in 2011, Infestation drops you right into the grimy boots of a squad of Colonial Marines investigating a derelict spaceship, and, shocker, things go sideways. It's essentially a playable love letter to James Cameron's Aliens, packed with the familiar dread, the pulse rifles, and, of course, a whole lot of acid-blooded xenomorphs ready to give you a very bad day. The plot is simple. Find survivors, figure out what happened, and try not to become facehugger food. It's classic Alien fare, but it's executed with such finesse, especially for a handheld. Now let's talk gameplay. This isn't your typical run-and-gun shooter, Aliens. Infestation is a 2D side-scrolling survival horror title, playing out like a Metroidvania with a Marine Corps twist. You explore cramped corridors, vent shafts, and dimly lit labs, constantly managing your limited ammo and trying to keep your squad alive. The brilliant mechanic here is that you control a squad of 4 unique Marines, and if one bites the big one, or gets chest bursted more likely, they're gone for good. You then cycle to the next available Marine. This permadeath system adds a real layer of tension, making every encounter feel genuinely perilous. Finding new recruits is key, and each Marine has their own personality and quips, making their potential demise even more impactful. The DS's dual screens are used ingeniously. The top screen shows your main gameplay, while the bottom displays your motion tracker, a constant beeping reminder of impending doom that will make your skin crawl. The pixel art is fantastic, managing to convey the bleak, industrial aesthetic of the films perfectly. And the sound design, oh man, the sound design is chef's kiss. It's a game that truly understood the source material and delivered an experience that felt both fresh and utterly faithful, proving that sometimes the best horror comes in small pixelated packages. Aliens, Colonial Marines, 2013. If hype were a xenomorph, Aliens, Colonial Marines would have been eaten alive before it even shipped. Released in 2013, after years of delays, shady outsourcing drama, and a trailer that straight up lied to our faces, this game was hyped as the follow-up to Aliens, 1986. What we got was less elite space soldiers and more galactic goof troop. The story tosses you into the boots of a fresh Marine squad sent to investigate the wreckage of the USS Sulaco. Predictably, the ship's full of trouble, corporate conspiracies, mystery goo, and way too many angry xenomorphs. The narrative tries to stitch itself into the existing film canon, but ends up looking like a DIY facehugger plushie gone wrong. Gameplay-wise, it's a first-person shooter with squad commands, weapon upgrades, and motion tracker beeps that were honestly the scariest part. The aliens, not so much. Due to a now infamous typo in the game's code, tether instead of tether, the enemy AI broke completely. Instead of stalking you from the shadows, they'd casually stroll past like they had brunch plans. Still, there's a weird charm here. Under all the mess, you can feel the love for the franchise. Modders have since patched up the worst bits, and playing it post-fix is kind of like watching a bad movie with great friends. It's janky, sure, but entertaining in its own unintentional way. Aliens, Armageddon, 2014. Strap in, space cadets! Aliens. Armageddon, released in 2014, is your ticket to arcade bug blasting. This light gun shooter from play mechanics and raw thrills drops you into a xenomorph-infested Earth. The setup? Earth's overrun, and you're humanity's last hope. With a buddy, fight through ruins and labs, escaping on a cargo ship. The story's thin, but who cares with pulse-pounding action and aliens to blast? Aliens. Armageddon is a rail shooter. Focus on pulling the trigger. The cabinet's guns feel weighty, and the enemy variety keeps you sweating. Wield flamethrowers, man turrets, and toss grenades, juggling a reload mechanic. It's fast and over the top. What sets it apart? The 55-inch LED screen and cel-shaded visuals give it flavour. It's the kind of game that makes you want to yell, "Game over, man!" Aliens. Armageddon isn't about storytelling, it's a wild ride for anyone wanting to blast aliens and have a blast. Alien. Isolation, 2014. A game that remembered Alien was a horror film, not an action flick with body armor. Alien Isolation, released in 2014 and ported beautifully to the Nintendo Switch in 2019, is a masterclass in space dread. Gone are the Marines. You're Amanda Ripley, daughter of the Ellen Ripley, searching for answers and trying not to become space sushi. Set aboard the Sevastopol station, a rusted-out, retro-futuristic death trap, it nails the 1979 movie's aesthetic. CRT monitors, clunky terminals, and industrial corridors that scream, "Bad things live here." Amanda follows a lead on her mother's fate, ends up aboard the station, and wouldn't you know it, there's a very angry xenomorph on board, and it's not here to make friends. Gameplay is pure survival horror. No rocket launchers, no power fantasy, just hiding in lockers, crafting noisemakers, and trying not to breathe too loud. The alien doesn't follow scripts, it hunts you dynamically using an AI that adapts, making every moment feel like it could be your last. It's hide and seek, but the seeker has acid blood and excellent hearing. Even on Switch, the tension holds up. Playing in handheld mode somehow makes it worse, because now you're panicking on your couch and in your hands. It's scary, brilliant, and wildly underrated by anyone expecting non-stop blasting. This is the alien experience purists always wanted. Sweaty palms, pulse-pounding silence, and a very good reason to fear ceiling vents. Aliens, Fireteam Elite 2021. If you're a Colonial Marine, fresh out of training, stepping onto a planet that looks like it was designed by someone who hates you, the air is thick, the shadows are darker than your last relationship, and somewhere nearby, a xenomorph is plotting your demise with all the subtlety of a facehugger. Welcome to Aliens, Fireteam Elite, the 2021 co-op shooter that throws you and two buddies into the deep end of the Aliens universe, where survival means teamwork, quick reflexes, and a serious love for flamethrowers. Developed by Cold Iron Studios, this game is basically the love child of Left 4 Dead and Alien, with a healthy dose of pulse rifle pew-pew and acid blood splatter. Set 23 years after the events of the original trilogy, Fireteam Elite doesn't waste time with melodrama. Instead, it drops you on LV-895, a planet crawling with evolved xenomorphs and corporate secrets that scream, "Don't touch this." Your mission? Blast your way through waves of bugs, complete objectives, and try not to become the latest in a long line of alien snacks. It's a perfect storm of sci-fi horror and tactical shooting, wrapped up in a package that's as nostalgic as it is fresh. Whether you're on PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series XS, or even the Nintendo Switch, this game delivers frantic co-op action that's all about watching each other's backs, because when the bugs come, they come hungry. Aliens, Dark Descent, 2023. Now a bold twist for the Alien franchise, Aliens Dark Descent 2023 says, what if we traded jump scares for tactical stress? And somehow, it works. This isn't your usual first-person panic party. It's a top-down, real-time strategy affair where you command a squad of Marines who are just one bad decision away from becoming space mulch. Think XCOM meets Aliens, but with fewer aliens wearing hats and more of them crawling through vents. Plot-wise, it kicks off with a crash landing on planet Lethe, which sounds ominous because it is, where your team uncovers, you guessed it, yet another outbreak of everyone's favourite acid-blooded monstrosities. The stakes feel high from the jump. The infection's spreading, Marines are dying, and Weyland-Yutani is doing what Weyland-Yutani does best, lying through their space teeth. Gameplay is where it shines. You guide your squad in real time, pausing to issue commands during firefights or to plan out room-clearing tactics that hopefully don't end in tears. Permadeath's on the table. Stress and panic are actual mechanics, and Xenos learn from your behaviour. Yes, the aliens evolve, which is both terrifying and wildly cool. Every mission feels like a juggling act, keeping Marines alive, objectives complete, and heart rates below critical. It's not just a good Aliens game, it's a smart one. On PS5 or Series XS, it runs like a dream. On PC, it's a micromanager's playground. Underrated? Absolutely. This one doesn't scream in your face. It strategizes behind your back. Alien. Rogue Incursion, 2024 VR or 2025 non-VR. Strap on your VR headset and prepare for a workout, mainly from flailing in terror, because Alien Rogue Incursion is here to turn your living room into a Xenomorph-infested panic zone. Dropping in 2024 for MetaQuest 3, VR 2 and Steam VR, and hitting PS5 and PC in 2025 for those who prefer their nightmares flat. This game lets you step into the boots of Zula Hendricks, an ex-Colonial Marine with a knack for stumbling into corporate conspiracies and bug problems of the acid-blooded variety. The story is classic Alien. You're infiltrating the Gemini Exoplanet Solutions Facility on the icy rock LV-354, searching for secrets and, hopefully, not becoming lunch. Your only real friend? Davis 01, a synth companion who's as dry as the planet's climate and about as comforting as a malfunctioning motion tracker. Gameplay is a sweaty-palmed blend of sneaking, shooting, and puzzle solving. You get a pulse rifle, shotgun, revolver, and some grenades. No melee weapon, so if a facehugger gets close, it's time to panic. The VR immersion is intense. Vents become death traps, every shadow hides a hiss, and the sound design will have you questioning every creak in your house. The campaign clocks in at around 8 hours, keeping the tension high and the Xenomorphs relentless. Not into VR, the 2025 non-VR edition brings all the action and shrieks to your screen. No headset required. Either way, Rogue Incursion is a must for anyone who loves their sci-fi with a side of heart-pounding fear. Alien vs Predator, AVP. Games. Alien vs Predator, 1993. When CRT TVs buzzed, cartridges needed blowing, and versus titles were the height of playground debate, Alien vs Predator. For the SNES entered the ring. No big cinematic intro, no co-op Marines, just one very ticked-off Predator, a city full of Xenomorphs, and a whole lot of side-scrolling smackdown. Unlike the flashier Capcom arcade version that came later, this SNES take is more of a solo slugfest. You play as a lone predator, out for honour, glory, or maybe just a good workout. The plot? Aliens invade Earth, again, and our favourite dreadlocked hunter decides it's time to go full 8-bit vigilante. Gameplay is simple, chunky, and weirdly satisfying. You walk, punch, stab, and fire the occasional plasma blast when things get spicy. The action is slower than modern beat-em-ups, but that kind of adds to its lumbering, unstoppable monster charm. And when you smack a Xeno so hard it explodes in pixelated green goo, yeah, that's the stuff. Visually, it's got that gritty SNES flair, grim backdrops, oversized sprites, and just enough alien gunk to make it memorable. It might not be the smoothest fighter in the franchise, but there's something lovable about its no-frills, arcade-in-your-living-room energy. Is it a classic? Not exactly, but But if you were a kid in the 90s, this game was absolute Saturday afternoon gold. Cheesy, clunky, and kind of awesome. Alien vs Predator, The Last of His Clan, 1993. Your Game Boy is glued to your hands, your thumbs are calloused, and you're convinced the only thing scarier than running out of AA batteries is running into a Xenomorph in a dark alley. Suddenly, Alien vs Predator, The Last of His Clan drops onto the scene and your portable world is flipped upside down. No more squashing Goombas or catching pocket monsters. Now you're the galaxy's most misunderstood trophy hunter, stranded on a pixelated planet crawling with acid-dripping nightmares. Forget peace talks. It's just you, your arsenal of alien tech, and a whole lot of things that want to use your skull as home decor. If you ever wondered what it's like to be the last Predator at the world's worst family reunion, this Game Boy gem is your ticket to the ultimate intergalactic smackdown. No quarters required, just nerves of steel, and maybe a backup set of batteries. You take on the role of the last Predator from his clan, out for revenge against a planet infested with aliens, the Xenomorph kind, not the little green men. The plot is classic 90s action. Survive, hunt, and take down the alien queen before you become the main course. Gameplay is a side-scrolling adventure with a twist. Predator gadgets. You start with wrist blades, but soon unlock the disc and shoulder cannon, each with their own strategic uses. The graphics are charmingly chunky, the music is pure chiptune adrenaline, and the difficulty curve is as unforgiving as a facehugger on a bad day. Criminally underrated, The Last of His Clan proves that big hunts can come in small, battery-powered packages. Alien vs Predator, 1994. Step right up, folks. Witness the intergalactic throwdown that defined an entire generation's awkward thumb cramps. Alien vs Predator, 1994, is Capcom's answer to what if a Predator, a cyborg Dutch, and a katana-wielding badass all fought aliens in a neon-lit brawl? Spoiler, it's ridiculously awesome, and exactly the kind of chaos your preteen self prayed for. You pick from 4 heroes, 2 versions of Predator, because even space hunters need variety, Dutch Schaefer with a robotic arm that packs a bigger punch than your dad's old toolbox, and Lieutenant Lin Kurosawa, who swings a katana so fast it could slice through your nostalgia. The plot? Well, aliens have invaded Earth again, and it's your job to beat them down. One acid-splattered alien at a time. No complicated backstory, just pure arcade mayhem. Gameplay is like Final Fight on a cosmic sugar rush. You mash buttons to punch, kick, blast plasma, and perform flashy combos that look cool enough to make your quarters feel well spent. The co-op mode is absolute chaos, filled with frantic moves, alien guts, and plenty of "watch out, I'm trying to help" moments. Each character plays differently, keeping the action fresh, and the enemies keep coming faster than you can say chestburster. With vibrant, huge sprites and slick animations, it's a visual feast of pixelated carnage. Sadly, it never made a big splash on home consoles at the time, which is a crying shame, but it's lived on in arcade legend and in the hearts of every button masher who survived the quarter drain. Alien vs Predator, 1994. A cosmic clash of monsters gone wild. Alien vs Predator. On the Atari Jaguar is like that party where everyone RSVP'd yes to chaos. Released in 1994, this game daringly crammed aliens, predators and marines into one blocky, pixelated space station. It wasn't just a game, it was a bold experiment. The story is simple. Aliens invade a marine base and predators crash the party to hunt. You pick your side. Play as a marine fighting for survival, a predator stalking with honor, or an alien slithering through vents. Each faction feels unique. The Marines campaign, Doom meets Aliens. Predator gameplay, stealth and honor. Alien, pure chaos, bursting from cocoons. The interconnected levels add depth. Why remember this Jaguar gem? It dared to be different. Rough graphics and a bizarre controller aside, the ambition shines. Alien vs Predator is a quirky reminder of gaming's risk-taking past, a chaotic, unforgettable ride. Find it, play it, and embrace the blocky brilliance. Aliens vs Predator, 1999. Before your fancy 4K gaming rigs existed, and when multiplayer meant screaming at your dial-up modem, Aliens vs Predator, 1999 crashed onto PCs like an acid-blooded party crasher. It was the game that made sci-fi fans collectively drool by handing them a cosmic choose your fighter card. Become a stealthy xenomorph, a laser-slinging predator, or a heavily armed but slightly clueless human marine, and then blast, claw, or stalk your way through a terrifying space station packed with nasties. The story's simple enough to explain between loading screens. An alien hive has popped up on a distant space station, and everyone's mood is bad. You get to see the chaos unfold through 3 separate campaigns, each from the viewpoint of one of the 3 iconic species. Playing as the Xenomorph means skulking in vents and launching surprise attacks like the ultimate space ninja. The Predator brings stealth, plasma cannons, and the kind of wrist blades that scream, "Don't mess with me." Meanwhile, the Marine is your classic trigger-happy soldier, running through corridors blasting acid-blooded nightmares with more firepower than common sense. Gameplay blends first-person shooting with stealth and survival horror vibes, making every corner feel tense and every alien encounter heart-pounding. The atmosphere, with its creepy sound effects and dimly lit corridors, perfectly nails the claustrophobic terror of the alien universe. Sure, it's a bit rough around the edges by today's standards, but this 1999 classic is the OG Aliens vs Predator experience, still one of the most ambitious and thrilling crossovers of its era. Aliens vs Predator 2, 2001. Boot up your CRT monitor, dust off that ball mouse, and prepare for a sci-fi smackdown of legendary proportions. Aliens vs Predator 2, 2001, for PC and Mac, is where your childhood nightmares and power fantasies collide in glorious early 2000s chaos. Developed by Monolith Productions, this game doesn't just let you play as a Colonial Marine, Predator, or Alien. It practically throws you headfirst into 3 separate horror movies, all set on the perpetually unlucky planet LV-1201. The plot? Oh, it's a tangled mess of corporate greed, thanks Weyland Yutani, escaped xenomorphs, and predators who treat the whole planet like their personal hunting lodge. Each campaign is its own fever dream. Marines get the full Aliens experience, complete with motion trackers that beep just when you least want them to, and enough jump scares to make you spill your Mountain Dew. As a predator, you're the intergalactic king of hide and seek, cloaking, leaping, and collecting skulls with a gadget arsenal that would make Batman jealous. And the alien, you're a wall-scurrying, ceiling-hugging nightmare, seeing the world through a fisheye lens and turning unsuspecting humans into your next meal. The multiplayer was wild, the single player was terrifying, and the whole package is still a masterclass in sci-fi horror FPS. If you missed it, you missed out on one of the coolest crossovers to ever hit a hard drive. Aliens vs Predator 2, Primal Hunt, 2002. Forget everything you know about polite sci-fi battles. Primal Hunt doesn't just crash the party, it kicks down the door with a plasma caster and a jungle full of bad intentions. Released in 2002 as the expansion to Aliens vs Predator 2, this PC-only gem replaces shiny space stations with dense foliage, claustrophobic ruins, and the kind of humid tension that makes your pulse thump louder than your pulse rifle. If Predator, 1987, and Alien, 1979, had a fever dream in the rainforest, this would be it. The setup is simple. Choose your poison. Want to scurry across walls as a screeching, face-hugging nightmare? Go Alien. Prefer to stalk prey like an intergalactic Batman with dreadlocks and a cloaking device? Predator's your guy. Or maybe you like your horror with bullets and panic? Cue the Marine, complete with motion tracker beeping like a death sentence in Morse code. Primal Hunt isn't just the upgraded visuals or tighter level design, it's the way it throws you into pure jungle paranoia. Every tree could hide something with claws. Every sound could be your last. And that's exactly what makes it such a cult hit. It's not here to reinvent the wheel. It's here to hide under your bed, make weird clicking noises, and scare the nostalgia right out of you. Aliens vs Predator, Extinction, 2003. When it comes to real-time strategy games on consoles, the early 2000s didn't exactly spoil players for choice. Most RTS classics stayed glued to the PC, leaving console gamers with a serious case of genre envy. That's what makes Aliens vs Predator, Extinction, such an interesting relic from 2003. Developed by Zono and published by Electronic Arts, this title brought the legendary Alien and Predator franchises together in a rare console-exclusive strategy format for PlayStation 2 and Xbox. Instead of following the usual first-person shooter formula that defined most Alien vs Predator games, Extinction went in a different direction. It's a squad-based RTS where you command one of three iconic factions, aliens, predators, or colonial marines, across a series of campaign missions. The game's story is straightforward sci-fi. A planet crawling with xenomorphs gets invaded by trigger-happy marines and trophy-hunting predators, and chaos naturally follows. Each side has its own campaign, objectives, and playstyle, giving the game a good amount of replay value for fans of the franchises. Extinction focuses more on squad management over traditional base building. You're not constructing elaborate fortresses or micromanaging resources. Instead, you're directing small, specialized teams and making the most of each faction's unique abilities. For console gamers in 2003, this was a refreshing and ambitious attempt to bring a PC-centric genre to the couch, complete with all the atmospheric touches you'd expect from an Alien or Predator title. While it flew under the radar for many, it remains a fascinating example of genre experimentation on consoles. Alien vs Predator, 2004. 2004, the year flip phones ruled, polyphonic ringtones were peak style, and if you had a mobile game that wasn't Snake, you were basically a tech god. Enter Alien vs Predator by Superscape, a mobile title that somehow crammed intergalactic monster mayhem into a screen smaller than your current app icons. And believe it or not, it actually worked. Released to coincide with the Alien vs Predator movie, you know, the one where both franchises said, "We've got nothing to lose," this game put you in the role of the Predator on a very pixelated hunt. The story is mostly, go here, kill that. But when you're controlling a 7-foot alien warrior with shoulder lasers and no patience for stealth, that's really all the motivation you need. Gameplay was as basic as mobile tech could manage: top-down, grid-based movement, swipe-style combat, well, button mashy, and simple objectives. But that simplicity came with charm. You had to actually use your wits. And by wits, I mean timing your attacks so the alien didn't headbite you into next week. It was gritty, clunky, and absolutely a product of its time, but also surprisingly playable for a mobile title before smartphones even existed. Sure, it's easy to laugh now, but for us early 2000s gamers on the go, AVP Mobile was a pocket-sized power trip. A little Predator in your pocket? Iconic. Alien vs Predator 3D, 2005. Your ringtone is Crazy Frog, your phone flips like it's auditioning for a spy movie, and 3D gaming on mobile sounds about as real as Wi-Fi on the moon. Then, Alien vs Predator 3D shows up on your brick of a phone and suddenly, BAM! You're the Predator, blasting xenomorphs before your mum calls to ask where you are. This glorious bit of chaos was cooked up by Superscape, who basically looked at a calculator screen and said, "Yeah, we can fit a whole sci-fi war in there." You're dropped into spooky corridor-filled levels where your job as the Predator is simple: hunt everything that moves. The plot? Minimal. The vibe? Maximum. You're a space monster with lasers. No one's asking for Shakespeare. Gameplay was in that magical early mobile 3D, kind of like watching a blender render a nightmare, but weirdly cool. The controls were clunky, because buttons, and the frame rate jogged like it skipped leg day, but still, it worked. The tension, the lighting, the "I can't believe this runs on my phone" awe factor, off the charts. Pure. Today it looks like something you'd find on the back of a cereal box. But for mobile gamers back in the day, AVP 3D was a flex, a low-res, choppy, oddly brilliant flex. Aliens vs Predator, Requiem, 2007. Let's be real, nobody was begging for a pocket-sized Predator experience, but in 2007, Aliens vs Predator, Requiem landed on the PSP anyway, determined to prove that intergalactic carnage could fit in your genes. The game loosely follows the movie's plot. Predator gets sent to small-town Colorado to clean up a xenomorph mess, erase the evidence in the process. The story isn't going to win any awards, but it's a decent excuse to let you loose with wrist blades and a plasma caster. Gameplay is a third-person action affair with a side of stealth and a heap of sci-fi gadgets. You get all the Predator's signature toys, wrist blades, shoulder cannon, and vision modes galore. There's an honor point system that rewards you for stylish alien kills and penalizes you for going wild on the humans. Predator code, you know? Missions are short and sweet, perfect for quick bursts of alien slaying on the go. There's even a local co-op mode for tag-teaming xenomorphs with a buddy. Sure, the graphics are a bit rough and the enemy AI isn't exactly genius level, but there's a scrappy charm to it all. For fans of the franchise or anyone who just wants a taste of sci-fi chaos on a handheld, Aliens vs Predator, Requiem is a weird, nostalgic ride worth a look, at least for a quick hunt or two. Aliens vs Predator, 2010. If you want to live out your most chaotic sci-fi fever dream, where you can either be a terrified marine, a spine-ripping predator, or a slippery, wall-crawling alien, then Aliens vs Predator 2010 was your unhinged playground. Released by Rebellion, those mad lads who made the 1999 cult classic, this reboot aimed to revive the ultimate intergalactic brawl for a new console generation. And boy, it went full facehugger. Let's break it down. As a Marine, it's Survival Horror 101, low lighting, sketchy motion tracker noises, and the general feeling that you're about to be murdered by something that doesn't obey the laws of physics. Playing as the alien, you're the greased-up nightmare every Space Marine fears. Vent crawling, tongue lashing, acid-bleeding chaos. Meanwhile, Predator mode is basically, how cool can we make Space Batman? You cloak, jump trees, laser dudes' faces off. You're not here to negotiate. Each campaign has its own flavour of violence and bad decisions. Then there's multiplayer, which felt like a bar fight broke out in a sci-fi convention. Marines, aliens and predators all tossing each other around in total, glorious imbalance. Sometimes you got stomped, sometimes you got your moment of glory. Every match felt like a deleted scene from a very unregulated sequel. Sure, critics poked holes in the story and said the gameplay wasn't perfect, but who needs perfection when you can headbutt someone while invisible and hissing? AVP, Evolution, 2013. Mobile games in 2013 were mostly about swiping fruit or matching candies, headed to crash the casual party with claws, plasma, and a whole lot of alien guts. Released on iOS, Android, and the Ouya, remember that? This game squeezed the legendary Alien vs Predator brawl into your pocket, because who wouldn't want to settle an interstellar score while pretending to check email? The plot is pure sci-fi mayhem. Super predators are tired of their jungle hunter cousins hogging the spotlight, so it's time for a little family feud. Meanwhile, the aliens are out to rescue their kidnapped queen and leave a trail of melted faces. You'll stomp through Weyland-Yutani labs, ancient temples, and gooey hives, turning everything into a mess only a xenomorph could love. Gameplay is a third-person brawler where you swap between Alien and Predator campaigns. Play as the Alien for claws, tails, and acid spit, or as the Predator for wrist blades, plasma cannons, and more vision modes than your phone has apps. Controls can be slippery, like wrestling a facehugger, but landing a brutal finisher is always satisfying. Visually, it's a stunner for a mobile game, with moody lighting and plenty of sci-fi atmosphere. It's not deep, but if you ever wanted to turn your phone into a tiny, portable alien war zone, AVP, Evolution is a ridiculous, guilty pleasure that delivers the goods. Marvelous verdict. From blocky Atari escapes to nerve-shredding VR nightmares, Alien and AVP games have evolved just as much as the Xenomorph itself. Some made us scream in terror, others in frustration, but every title added a new chapter to this iconic sci-fi saga. Whether you're a Colonial Marine, a lone survivor, or a predator on the hunt, you play.